All right, welcome on in everyone. Welcome to our latest in the OMJ live streams. So this week we have several topics for you. We're going to start with Alan talking about some dance photography, and then have Courtenay talking about dance makeup, and then Thomas and myself will be talking about dance music. So I'm going to hand you on over to Alan to talk dance photography. Feel free to pop any questions you may have to him in chat. And yeah, over to you, Alan.
Sweet. Hola, hola, everybody. Yeah, dance photography. It's a little trick I have up my sleeve. Bit of background. It's kind of funny. I sometimes run into people at comps and they ask me how things are going and all that sort of thing, and they think I do it for a living. I don't. So just as kudos to real life, like IRL pros out there. No, I do it as or used to do it as a passionate hobby. These days, not so much. I have no professional training in that sense. It's self-taught. It's a hobby that I started to pick up towards the end of my uni days. So I want to sort of cover this topic in sort of two parts. One two parts. One part from the dancer's perspective, so for the majority of you guys, and two from the photographer's perspective, so stuff that I found, or if you do some yourself or are interested in getting into, hopefully some good stuff in there for you too. So where's my mouse? Right. So yeah, in the sense of competitive dance photography, that's quite a hard one. I would recommend doing that leisurely. I wouldn't recommend doing that professionally. It is quite hard work, especially if your goal, rather than just enjoying yourself and taking pictures of your friends and having fun, that's all good. If your goal is to cover the whole event in its entirety, that is for me, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Simply because you have so little time to take solid photos of each couple. If you think about it, you've got about 2.5 minutes for each heat, and you've got 6 couples on the floor. By the time you take into account the song starting, that sort of first 5 seconds, sorry, and then your time to get around the floor, you've got about 15 seconds per couple to get at least one decent shot, which is easier said than done. So I wouldn't recommend that. I recommend, like dancing in general, enjoy yourself. Just take it easy and have some fun. I'll start with the photographer's perspective. Most of you probably will bring your phones along to your competitions or social dancing in general, that sort of thing, and take photos with your phone, if at all. Generally speaking, I think most people these days take videos more than they do photos with their phone, but a phone is fine. It'll be able to take a photo, and there's nothing wrong with it. But what you'll find is you'll very quickly run into limitations using a phone. Several reasons for that being that the autofocus on phones are just not up there yet with dedicated cameras in terms of shooting sports or any sort of live action sort of thing. The other thing is it's not very great to handle because your phone's so light and thin and sleek and sexy and all that stuff. There's no sort of weight to it. So when you hold your phone to take a shot, the actual lens of the you're shooting through is not very stable, and especially in these venues that tend to be low lit, that sort of thing, the phone will default to a slower shutter speed to compensate for the lower light, and then you'll run into issues there. Moving on from that, if you do get to a point where you can have something that's a bit more control over, you have to remember that you are, at the end of the day, you're capturing movement. Yeah. So one thing just to keep in mind for that is if you go beyond just auto modes, again, which will get the job done, all right. But if you want to take it to that next level and really create an image, rather than just taking a photo, then I recommend as far as your shutter speed goes, in terms of how much you capture the movement, then I would say 1/60th of a second is the slowest I would go. That sort of depends on how steady your hand is, but I'd say no slower than 160, because otherwise then you're starting to blur people's faces and that sort of thing. The fastest, I would say, 1/200 or 1/250 of a second. That is a nice range because it still plays well with your flash, if you have one, and it captures movement pretty well. So in between those two ranges. So you just got to remember that the environment you're in, on how much lighting there is, how fast these people are dancing. So like a faster style, maybe like a Latin style, you're going to need to crank that speed up. A slower, more social style like modern jive, you have a bit more wiggle room there. Just real quick, Hazel just left a comment. Oh yeah, there were sort of studio style photos that I did a couple of years ago. Those were real interest projects at the time. And Hazel just asked if some people are interested in whether or not they can be booked and how much that would cost. I don't have that information off the top of my head because it's not something I've done in a while, but I don't see why not. Hard to say what that might be in this current climate, but keep your eyes peeled. I may put up some more information on that, depending if I've time and our society allows for more interaction in that basis in the near future. Moving on from that, I want to cover a little bit more, continuing on from the photographer's perspective. So when you go up to the floor, whether it's a social floor or a competition floor, either or, you first need to consider your position relative to the couple that's dancing in front of you. So that is to say, are you standing perpendicular to them, square on, or are you standing off to the side, parallel to them, or you're on an angle? Are you at eye level, or are you taller, or are you standing on like a chair to get a high shot, or are you squatting down to get a lower angle? These are things that you can consider to create what kind of shot you want. Square on tends to mean it's harder to capture both of the dancers in the same frame because they're just spaced further apart, yeah? Particularly if your camera's orientated in portrait, yeah? And you might find that when you have it landscape, if you're square on and people are dancing in open hold, you have a lot of dead space in between them, and you need to fill that space with something because the eye tends to get drawn to, centers of the frame, that sort of thing. So keep that in mind. Personally, I like to go a little bit side on because it means that you can capture one person in the frame quite tightly and the other person's going to be in the frame in some form or fashion a little bit more tightly, yeah? So it creates a more engaged photo, basically showing the two people interacting in a more dynamic way. The second thing I would say is consider what's in the shot or what's in the frame that now that you've decided to where you're positioning yourself is one, very simply, can you see at least one person's face? It sounds a bit silly, but sometimes people are turning away from you, they're spinning or that sort of thing. So one, straight up, can you see a face? If so, can you capture the other person in the same frame somehow? So that sort of ties back to the first point of how you position yourself, yeah? If you can, make that judgment call as to whether or not you want to shoot them in landscape or portrait and how it fills that frame, yeah? The more you get to shoot, you'll get more comfortable with what that looks like in the viewfinder when you're shooting as to what sort of interactions you're capturing there. The next point I would suggest to think about is what are they doing? Yeah, are they doing big dips and drops or aerials, like is it open? Then zoom your lens out. Give them more space so you can capture the shapes and the poses and stuff that they're holding. If they're in a close hold or in a like a basket or first move or something where it's more intimate and close together, then by all means bring that zoom in, get in tighter. Don't be afraid to fill the frame and then you get to create a more closed space. The next point I want to focus on is what are you focusing on as you shoot, yeah? Are they smiling? That's really number one. Again, comes into play quite a lot. Yeah, are they making a duck face? Are they in the middle of a move, yeah? And does that move involve turns or spinning? There's no golden rule that says, you should only shoot, in the middle of a spin, at the end of a spin, that sort of thing. You can make that decision based on a number of things, yeah? A lot of people don't like to get those shots where their faces look a bit unflattering as they're turning, but some people have a really nice smiling face as they spin, and that's fine. And if your shutter speed is fast enough to not blur that face, you can capture that moment where their hair is flipping around and your face is still able to be seen clearly, and it's still, reasonably flattering, and capture that moment, yeah? So these are just things to consider as you shoot. As a starting point, at the end of moves, at the end of slots, is pretty safe. You'll get a shot that's, technically in focus, well lit, that sort of thing, and that's perfectly fine. The last point I want to talk about from the photographer's perspective is going back to lighting, we touched on earlier. I see some people that get into using dedicated cameras, be they mirrorless or DSLR cameras at comps or parties or that sort of thing. And they either have like a built-in flash, built-in pop-up flash, or a external flash that's hot shoe mounted. And that's great, that's fine. But I really strongly recommend against using that as your only light source, yeah? Pardon me. And if you leave it on auto, what the camera tends to do, the camera's job is just to take, as far as the computer inside the camera is concerned, is it just needs to take a photo that across the board is exposed and in focus, yeah? And the fact that it's lit well enough. And the way it does that, it goes, well, it's too dark in here sometimes, especially if in dance competitions and parties. So what I'm going to do is I'll fire my flash to make up for that, and it cranks up the shutter speed so that none of the ambient light that's in the room, that just lights the room as your human eye sees it, that light no longer gets captured by the camera, because now it's relying entirely on that flash, and you get that harsh, direct lighting, yeah, which isn't very flattering. So in that sense, I would say, depending on your venue, if you have an external flash that's mounted on your camera, to bounce it and diffuse it off walls, ceilings. You can get some devices that diffuse it just straight up on the flash. It's like a little pop-up thingy. If you're in like a big sports stadium, that's fine too, or you just fire it straight up. Sometimes I use bounce cards just to spread it out, and that's fine too, because for me, I like to capture the lighting of the venue in an authentic way, yeah? You see some photos where it's just completely dark in the back, it looks like it's a black room and there's only one light, and to me that's not a very flattering way to light a photo. So diffuse and bounce your lighting as much as you can. If the venue is well lit enough already and you have a flash, what you can always do is use that flash directly at a lower power to create really nice catch lights in the eyes. You know, when you ever see movies or those professional portraits and you see there's a glimmer in the eyes, yeah? That's generally created by an external light source, and the photographer's planned for that, to create that nice catch light in the eyes, and it really brings the subjects to life, yeah? You'll notice it's one of those subconscious things that we see and we feel, but we don't always notice it, yeah? But it definitely makes a huge difference whether it's there or not. Right, finishing up, just going to move on to from the dancer's perspective. So for the majority of you guys, everyone likes to be able to share a nice, photo of them dancing, doing the things they love, and it's partly one of the main reasons why I used to do competitions, is because I used to see a lot of awful photos floating around, and I was like, oh, people should be able to have a nice photo they can share to their family and friends and be like, hey, here's me doing this thing I love and I look super fly doing it, So for most of you, you might be thinking, oh, well, what can I do while I'm dancing to have a better chance of getting nice photos, either taken by my friends or someone else. I'll break it up a little bit into levels, not unlike we do for competitions. If you're a newer dancer or at a beginner level, the main thing, and you would have been told this already, again, it's synonymous with what we tell a lot of you guys for competitions in general, is smile. Again, it sounds silly. It sounds silly and very superfluous in a sense, but it makes so much difference. Like, just remember going through and sorting through the thousands of photos after comps. And if you go through the newer levels for the events, some people are in there and they're just having a ball of the time. They're not worrying about the judges and they're just smiling, and their photos look so beautiful. They look like they're having so much fun. And then there are some people who are nervous, but they're still having fun and they're still smiling, and that's so great. It's like I didn't. If you've ever seen like some old stuff of maybe you've got some old photos of you from your levels, the difference is palpable. So smile, smile, smile. Second thing, I would say that closer moves, so stuff like baskets, first moves, Manhattans, mean that it'll be easier for the photographers to, again, take that photo of you that involves another person to show you context, yeah? Otherwise, if you're dancing open a lot, yes, Hazel, Alan is saying smile. I mean, this is one of those do as I say kind of things, yeah? Whereas if you're dancing open all the time, you know, with just two hands doing, you know, Wurlitzers are nice because Wurlitzers do a pose, but like other moves like shoulder block's actually a good closing move too as well. But any moves that's always two hands and open, you're spaced apart, then it means that it'll be harder for the photographer to capture you and your partner in the same frame. And it just means that you lose that little bit of context and interaction that you guys are sharing. Which is not to say that you should change your dancing purely because of that. But what you might take away from it is if you're on the floor, say you're competing and you're nervous and you see a photographer walk past, maybe it's something to think, oh, I'm freezing up. I've been doing squeeze boxes and left side changes for the past, you know, minutes solid. Ooh, let's bust into a first move or just things like that, yeah? Just to jumpstart you rather than thinking I need to change how I'm dancing actively so I'm going to get like a sweet shot, yeah? Generally speaking, that doesn't really play out. So don't stress about changing yourself on behalf of that. If anything, just use it as a cue card to remind yourself, hey, I have these other options I can do if I'm freezing up anyway. If you, this goes for both any level, this next point. You don't necessarily have to look at the camera. I know some people like to do that, and that's fine. It creates a really nice, you know, like if you watch higher level dancers for their showcases, you know, looking at the audience creates that extra degree of interaction. But if you look at each other, then we're able to capture, if you're in the same frame, that moment that you're sharing, yeah? And in that same sense, if one person is looking at the lens, at the camera, and one person is not, then it creates a bit of disconnect. And it's happened before, yeah? I'll see some people who are like, as I'm walking past in the past, who are taking a shot, and one person's like, ooh, get the gram, you know, like come in, and they're like looking at the lens, and their partner's still like busy doing their, you know, sweet styling move thing, and they're off to the side, and they've just temporarily disconnected from their partner for a moment. And while, yes, that person who turned to look and smile at the camera looks like they're having fun, that's great. But in the wider context of the shot, you can see their partner's just disconnected, yeah? So again, same principles apply as for your dancing normally. So don't feel like you need to change your dancing for the sake of the gram, yeah? For intermediate and advanced level dancers, again, just going back, those points for beginners still apply. Smile, don't forget to smile, even if, you know, you've been dancing for, you know, X months, X years. Don't forget to do that. It really does show through in the photos. I can't stress that enough. in that same sense, though, again, the same principles that we talk about for dancing and competing in general. Your dancing should be tying into the music. Yeah, your musicality as you develop should get stronger. And what that will mean is if the photographer has a dancing background and has done some before, for me, I'm partly watching through the lens and partly listening out as well with my ears and listening out for phrase changes, hits, moments, lulls, anything else in the music that would suggest to me, okay, something's coming up. I'm primed. I'm ready. I'm focusing. I'm following this. I can frame my shot and get ready, yeah? So that you're not just taking a stab in the dark. You're making an informed decision and action, yeah? So again, it comes back to your musicality. Yeah, and then going back to, yes, if you're at an intermediate or a higher level dancer, then hopefully you're starting to create new and interesting shapes or moments or like emotions, just like if it's a really nice emotive song, then that's between you and your dance partner. You, again, don't feel compelled to create something artificial for the sake of the photographer that's walking past you, yeah? He's got all of, 10 to 15 seconds anyway. Like, don't risk ballsing something up that you're already in the middle of just because he's walking past. Post your favorite dance pick, go. Is that for me, Hazel? Because I don't have one at the ready. But someone else, feel free to post one in the chat. Yeah. One last thing is, the onus is on the photographer, yeah? So if you're a dancer and you sometimes don't see either A, photos of you come out, or a bunk photo of you come out and you're not too happy with, that onus is kind of, for me, I put it on the photographer, yeah? It's up to them to capture a moment that is flattering for as many people as possible, yeah? And at the end of the day, also, some moves, it's easy to forget, they just don't photograph well. And straight up, some categories don't photograph that well. A really great example of that is steals. Steals is really hard to photograph. Steals is probably one of the hardest categories to photograph. Because the point of that category is you need to capture 3 people that are dancing. Only 2 are really actively dancing at one stage. So you need to capture it in such a way that it shows all 3 interacting. So basically you're trying to capture them at the stealing point. But the point at which the steal happens is generally not that photogenic, because you got like 3 people sort of just twisting these cogs into smoothly transition, and it's pretty hard. I've got maybe one floating around of an old one, but again, the best one I've got of steals, if I can remember, is actually one where everyone's just smiling. There's 2 people dancing, and the steal is just walking past, and all 3 of them got a big smile on their face, and it's a really nice photo. I really enjoy it, and quite proud of that one. So yeah, going back to just some questions. If I go to questions, I think I have addressed it already. I think Brody had a question from yesterday. Oh yeah, so the question was, do you find there are specific parts or times in a dance that photograph better, e.g. when Hazel makes duck faces or when the dancers are closer? Yeah, so I addressed this a little bit earlier. I would say closed hold creates nice moments as long as you're, there's something there and you're smiling and you can show that. I have no remedy for duck faces, Hazel. Sorry, R.I.P. And another question Courtney asked was, is there a favorite dance pose to capture? To be honest, not really. There's not really one, because that's like saying, it's kind of like saying, what's your favorite move or movement in modern jive? It's like there's so many great ones. It's really hard to say. So I don't really have an answer for that one, unfortunately. Superboys. Superboys are pretty dope too. Hold my beer. Yeah. If no one else has got any other questions in the chat, I just noticed that James's Norton antivirus just updated. Sweet. Why are you still using Norton, James?
Custom shade.
Oh yeah, Symantec, eh? In the 2020s. Ah, cool. All right. If no one's got any more questions in the chat, I might have a dig around while Courtney and James do their next bit, and I'll maybe post a golden oldie in the chat for you guys who haven't knows yet.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much for that, Alan. It was very interesting.
A question just showed up, Alan.
Oh. Have you experimented with slower shutter speeds, 1/30th or slower, while trying to maintain sharpness on the face or to show movement? From Thomas Goodwin. So Thomas, I have. I think the lowest I've ever gone down to is 1/50th. So I say 1/60th. 1/50th is probably the lowest I go down to. That's if you're. I've done it for sort of like promo shots of an event where I'm doing like a slower, general photo of the environment for like a poster or a Facebook event banner or something where you want to show people filling a space and movement, so it's blurred. Yeah, so that is when one instance where I would use a slower shutter speed, like 1/30th or even slower. I think I maybe use like like a half or a fifth of a second for those kind of shots. But generally speaking, I wouldn't go that low. You'll find it's quite difficult to capture people's faces that are in focus and visible. I would say keep it between 1/60th and 1/250th, depending on what your flash is doing, if you want to get technical on that side. But that's my recommendation on that. If you get your hair cut a couple of days before, it'll help. It helps your photo. From Blake, I guess. I mean, that's just looking fly in the day, like get rich or die flying. That's just solid, straight up advice. You're not wrong, Mr. Blake. Not wrong. Cool. I think that's more than my 20. Yeah. So.
Yeah, cut into my time. I'm kidding.
That was interesting stuff. Thank you very much for that, Alan.
It's cool.
Yes.
All right. We're now going to switch over to Courtney, who will be talking a bit about dance makeup.
Hello. It hasn't switched over to me just yet, but I will keep talking anyway. So the way that I've done this, instead of taking you through what I would do for a makeup face, is I've written down some tips while I was doing my makeup today, and I will go through those and sort of explain them a bit more as well. So I've got about 15 of them, and the first one, I'm looking over at my computer, so if I look this way, that's why, is to know your face. I can give you all the tips in the world, but if you don't know what face shape you've got, what your skin tone, what your undertone, what your eye shapes, what your brow shape, things like that are, it's going to affect the way you the way that it looks. Yes, Gain, you do have to shave for this section. And the knowledge of your body and your face and the skin tone that you have will allow you to create a better and more effective look that you're going for, and you'll find things turn out the way that you wanted them to because you're doing them for your face, not technically for, say, mine. And then the next tip, and this one I can't stress enough, your face isn't symmetrical, so stop trying to make it that way. It's not meant to look like that. Like, symmetry is pleasing, yes, but if you've seen those photos where people mirror like one side of their face, it just looks weird. So try and keep those little bits of those flaws, the bits where your eyebrows don't arch the same way and things like that, because that's what makes you unique, and that's what your face is meant to show. It's meant to have that there. So I'll move into some base tips. The first one, when it comes to your foundation, once you've put it on, is always to remember to blend it up into your hairline, up across to your ears, especially if you've got your hair up. Make sure you cover those ears because they're going to be little red stained glass windows if you've got some light coming up behind them. So cover those, and then down into your neck, especially if there's a little bit of color disparity between your foundation and your neck. Say you've got a tan and your face isn't tanned or something like that. You want to make sure you put some synergy down into the rest of your body. The next one is when you're putting powder on, and it is important to powder, especially if you're doing it for dance, because powder is how you keep it on all day. It's how you make sure it doesn't sweat off in the first heat or your first dance. You want to push that in using a translucent loose powder, or one with color. It's not really too much of an issue. But make sure it's loose, and you put it onto a sponge or a little makeup poof and really push it into your skin and make sure that it's soaking into that foundation and soaking up those oils. And then you'll find that your foundation and your base is going to last 10 times longer than if you had nothing on or if you just dusted it over with a brush. Of course, do grab a brush and quickly dust afterwards, because you'll find that there are little casts and stuff where the powder hasn't fully soaked up, and you want to make sure you get rid of that, because otherwise you're going to look like a ghost. Then we'll move into contours and highlights. So when you're contouring is accentuating hollows and shadows. It's dark. It goes into the parts that you want to sink in or sort of hide away. Your highlights go on your high points, and are the bits that you want to accentuate and you want to pick up the light. So the main places in a general sense that you would contour would be your jawline, the hollows of your cheeks to bring out your cheekbones, your nose if you want to make it smaller or more pointed, and the forehead. When it comes to your cheekbones, which is probably the one that most people want, really feel your face and feel and push and find where the bottom of that cheekbone is. Because when we go through and put on the makeup, we do ask make a fishy face, so that we suck in your face. This works, but it doesn't quite go up high enough. So because you're sucking your cheeks in and they're sitting next to your teeth, it's coming down a little bit lower. So it's sitting in between my jaw, where the end of my cheekbone is right up here. So that can give you an indication, but you sort of want to make sure that you're going just a little bit higher and getting the actual cheekbone so that it doesn't look like you've just got a muddy patch on your jaw. Make sure that you blend and blend and blend. I'll say this now before anything. Blending is key. If you don't blend it out, you're going to look like you've got patches of colour all over your face. It's pretty self-explanatory, but sometimes it does have to be repeated. Under your jaw, you want to make sure that you're not coming too far up onto the actual jaw. It tends to be just underneath, hiding everyone's double chin or triple or single. Who knows? But yeah, just make sure you don't bring it up too high, because that can make you look like you're wearing a beard. And if you've got contour down there, you're probably not wanting to make it look like you've got a beard. The forehead is really just to sort of bring everything in. I have a 5 head. My forehead is quite large. There's nothing wrong with that. I've learned to love it now. I used to hate it when I was a kid. But I do like to, if I've got my fringe back or my hair back, I do like to put a little bit of contour across the top, just to sort of take the attention away from the fact that my hairline's quite far back. Next up, I'm not going to go into nose contour because that depends on you, your type of nose, what you want the nose to look like, all of that stuff. If you do want more detail on that, you can always message me and I can help you out specifically. Highlighting points are usually right in the middle of your forehead, your nose, the top of your cheekbones, the high point, your cupid's bow, and sometimes people do the chin. It depends. And this is the point that you want to stand out, the points that you want to catch the light. Like, I've got a decent amount of highlighter on today, probably a bit too much if there is such a thing. But this is how you catch the light. People go, oh, she's looking nice, or he, either way, they are looking nice and flawless. And it really doesn't, brings out those bits. It'll make your cheekbones look higher. It'll make your nose look smaller, especially if you put it like right in the top. And it can really bring a nice attention grab to the parts that you want to highlight. When highlighting your cheekbones, all you need to do is remember that you're not coming past your outer corner. So if you bring your highlight any further into here, this is where you start looking sweaty. So we want outer corner of the eye up towards your hairline, just around there. All right, eyebrows, pretty easy. Eyebrows are sisters, not twins. Don't try and make them look symmetrical. One, because of the point that I covered earlier. Two, because if they are the only things that are symmetrical on your face, that's just going to highlight everything else that's not, and it's going to look even weirder. Just embrace the fact that each side of your face doesn't look the same, and it's not going to unless you spend 4 hours trying to make your eyebrows look exactly the same. Your eyes, I had a question from, I think it was Lucy Becker, asking on how to make them look bigger and make them stand out more for, particularly for competitions, because hers tend to get lost as soon as she gets on the competition floor. My suggestions there are to make sure that you're only keeping your dark colours on the outer corner and blending into the crease a little bit, which is your little eye crease here. People who do makeup will know what I'm talking about. And yeah, you want to keep your dark colours on that sort of outer point, and then you want a lot of highlighting, bright colours on the lid and in that inner corner to sort of open it up a bit more and make it look like and make them look like they're standing out, not like if you've got dark all over the eye, then they'll sink in more like you would if you put contour on your cheek. It sinks in, and you won't be able to see them as well. The other thing is to put highlight, like a nice bright highlight on the inner corner of your eye, like right in here, and that will also make your eyes look more awake, make them look more open, and also just give a nice little brightening spot that will help make them look a bit bigger and more prominent in the face. And again, blending is key. Make sure you blend all of your crease, your outer corner, all of those sorts of colours together, so that they're one seamless ombre or gradient effect, instead of just, this is one line of one colour, this is one line of the other colour, this is one spot here. And then it makes it look more seamless and more flawless and just a bit more pleasing. For eyeliner and fake lashes and mascara. If you're doing it on your top lash mascara, make sure you're looking down into your mirror. It'll make it so much easier because you don't have, for eyeliner, you don't have any lines or creases. So you can get a smoother line all the way through. With lashes, you can see where you're sticking them. And with mascara, it just stops you from stabbing yourself in the eye or getting mascara all across your brow bone. With lower lash mascara, if you want to do that, look up. So tilt your head down and look up into your mirror and then go through. And that way it will stop you from, again, poking yourself in the eye, essentially. Do your lower lash mascara before you do your upper lash mascara, and then you don't risk, when you look up, you don't risk getting all those splodges of wet mascara from your upper lashes on your brow bone. If you're wearing fakes for this usually happens for dance competitions. If you are wearing a fake eyelash, cut it into 2/3. So you've got 2/3, which is your outer part, and then your inner part that will go in the inner corner. Get rid of that. Don't worry about it. Just get rid of it and stick only that outer 2/3 on. Your eyes will look bigger and more elongated and more open when you've got longer lashes on the outside. It's natural for our lashes to go from short to long to short as they go round into the corners. So putting the longer ones on the outer corner will just make everything look more open and more elongated, and will make your eyelashes look nice and fluttery and intense if that's what you're going for. Also give it about 30 seconds when you put your lash glue on the lash before you put it on your eye. This will make sure that there's enough tackiness for it to stick to your eye and you're not getting eyelash glue everywhere. Not particularly fun. Last step is to set everything in place. You can buy setting sprays or fixing sprays from most places where makeup is available. But in a pinch, or if you're at a dance competition and you really don't want that stuff to move, hairspray. Hairspray will soak in and pretty much works as cement and just holds everything, and it's not going to go anywhere for the next however long you want to keep it on there for. It also gives it a little bit of waterproofing, so it helps with the sweat throughout the day. All right, I talked long and a lot for all of that, but yes, Brody, glue on the eye. Yeah, that's how you put fake eyelashes on. But I don't think any questions came through. If you do have any, feel free to send me a message or anything like that. I do lessons, specifically with people if they want them, where I will do half a face for them and I'll get them to do their other half. And if you are interested in that sort of thing, to learn tips that are specific for your face, then feel free to send me a message. We can sort that out. But yeah, there's nothing there, so I guess I'm passing it on to James. Are you there? But thank you guys all for coming and listening to this. I hope that those who wanted to have learnt enough, and yeah, pass you on. Hello.
Uh-oh.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Kinda.
Right. Don't know what happened there. Did several thank you, Courtney, for that. Apparently none of them went through. But yeah, thank you very much for that.
No problem.
I'm sure a lot of people found that quite useful. as someone who doesn't generally use makeup, it was still very interesting for me. Cool. We're now going to jump over to Thomas and I, and we're going to talk a bit about DJing and music. And I'm going to jump up into the corner of the screen. So, just a bit of background. I've been DJing, I want to say like 4 or 5 years now. Can't remember the exact date. Mostly the Wednesday nights. I think Thomas, are you at 2 years now, or?
Yeah, about 2 years. Between 2 and 3, I think.
Yeah.
I've been doing it a while now.
Yeah, so we do the music for Wednesday nights. Matt kind of talked about how on Monday night in the Cabin Fevers, about how the nights are structured in terms of where the music gets played. So Thomas and I do the music that is played in between the beginners and intermediate class, and then everything that's played afterwards, or after intermediate, and the teachers are kind of responsible for all the music that plays during classes. So I figured Thomas and I would kind of have a bit of a chat about how we like to build the playlists for a Wednesday night, and how we find and pick music. And at the end I'll go over a little bit about competition music, because I've done the Christchurch Champs for the last 2 years. Or at least I've done the Saturday music for the last 2 years. Matt does the Sundays. Cool.
Sounds good.
So Thomas, how do you go about, I guess, we'll start with, how do you find music?
Oh, how do I find music? So it can be lots of different forms, lots of different ways. I try and let, this is going to sound real corny, but I try and let the music come to me in the sense, like Spotify's new music, or if people send me a song, then I'll generally like listen to it. It's generally a combination between what I hear on the radio, what I hear at dance or other dance styles, what I hear from dancers, or if I see or watch a movie that I was like, or a show that I'm like, that has like particularly good music, I'll listen to like their soundtrack and try and gain some music from that. So lots of different sources.
Yeah, I'm much the same. Spotify Discover and like the New Music Fridays are always quite good, I find. Or they can be hit and miss. There's generally 1 or 2 gems in them.
Yeah, there's a lot of songs, and I think this is the thing that people don't understand, especially when they send music to us, is like a lot of songs are good to listen to, but not necessarily good to dance to.
Yes, that's very true. There's a lot of music out there that's like, oh, this is a great song to listen to. The second you try dancing to it, oh.
You're like, this does not work.
Yeah.
You're like, this is 200 BPM, I'm dying.
Yeah.
Or this has not got a clear beat. Okay.
Or, yeah, this just does weird transitions that none of us are expecting.
Yes.
I think, I can't remember quite who it was, but I remember someone saying that the thing with music is the musicians don't make it with dancers in mind. So we're just kind of left to deal with whatever they've decided to play.
Yeah. Yeah. And that can have some interesting consequences in terms of us building I guess you'd call it a set or a night of songs, especially if like you're ending up with like a period of music where it's very, very slow and low the whole time. Like obviously you can't play a whole night of slow and low, or you can't play a whole night of quick and fast. So you've got to then like find a way of slowly bringing these songs in that are all of a particular style while still getting variety and new music of that variety as well. And I guess that's the biggest challenge for us.
Yeah. Indeed. I'm just going to move myself over to hide the gaming stream.
Why? It's doing well. 3 kills.
Not bad. Yeah, I guess that kind of also, that's a good kind of segue into like how we start structuring our playlists, because we kind of generally, like for the beginner freestyle, which is what we call the freestyle between beginners and intermediate, we all kind of stick the generally 2-minute songs, so we shorten them, with the idea being that you want to get people having as many dances as possible in that short period of time, and generally because beginners aren't as confident with the moves, making them stick out 4 or 5 minutes isn't necessarily the best idea.
Can you imagine on your first night having to dance for like 5 minutes for 3 moves that you can hardly remember with one person?
Yeah.
It'd be awful.
Doesn't go the best. So yeah, it's generally 2-minute songs. It also is a good chance to means you rotate a lot, so you get to meet a lot more people in that time period. So generally, I think we both stick to generally the more high energy or fun songs.
Upbeat songs.
Yeah, just to kind of have more ways of playing around. We do put a bit of variance in, but it's more, we keep it to a tighter range. You
just mentioned something that is quite important, James, which was you were saying it's about like the social aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of the issues people have, or people get confused about when they're listening to our sets, and they're like, oh, but that song wasn't fun, or this wasn't that, or whatever, they don't like it. They've got to remember that our aim isn't for competitive dances at all. Our aim is so that everyone has a really good social night on the dance floor.
Yeah, and I think Matt mentioned that as well in his thing, is that at no point in the night are we actually aiming to make you enjoy every song in the playlist.
Yeah.
Because if we actually did that, there's a good chance we actually then pissed off like 90% of the other people in the room.
Yeah.
And so we're often actually trying to take into account, as you said, competitive dancers. We need to make sure there are a couple songs for them. We're definitely focusing more on the social dancers, but we want to make sure there are people that love their fast songs, so there's got to be songs for them. People that love their slow, people that love their R&B, their hip hop, their
yeah, boy,
their teenage pop, and their acoustic. So there's a lot of music that you have to kind of, as Hazel says, her Beyonce. We can't get to that all night long.
Unfortunately not. We have put a request in before. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, there's generally
I mean, if Hazel ever has a birthday on a Wednesday night, I guess we could try.
Yeah, that and a fair few Rihanna songs.
Yeah, it'd be Rihanna, Beyonce. What else does Hazel like? Oh, Boys Haven't You, or country. Hazel has a secret desire to dance to country.
Yes. So yeah, you're kind of trying to take care of a range of people when you're taking into account your playlist. I know for me, I think we're both the same on this, is that the start of the night is always high energy, because the aim is to get people out on the floor. You want them dancing,
to get people moving, to get people in rhythm with the music, and get people excited about dancing.
Yeah,
is how we want to start the atmosphere of the night.
Yeah, and it's also generally the time that all the beginners are coming back out from the beginners review. You've got anyone that's coming just at the end of intermediate, so you're kind of wanting to play music that's going to get them on the floor, get them moving. How do you then start structuring your playlist from there?
So I've done it different ways quite a few times, and I'm effectively one of these people that, like, every time I'm putting a playlist out, I'm kind of like tinkering with it a little bit and making it a little bit of a social experiment. But what I've found seems to work the best is if you start with like a decently high amount of energy and BPM, and then you raise a little bit, and then over the night you slowly bring it down like in waves. That's not to say you can't have a BPM going from high to low to high to low to high to low. I'm mainly referring to the energy of the night going from starting high, going up a little bit, and then slowly through the night kind of waving down.
Yeah.
So what that means is, like, you've still got this awesome atmosphere of people who are trying to dance the whole night, or who are dancing as much as they can. They're really energetic the whole night, and they're just really passionate about dancing. They keep dancing through the whole night. The challenge with that is, while you've got this energy that's like going up and down from it, you can't just obviously have the BPM matching it. So BPM, for people that don't actually know DJing, BPM beats per minute. So you can't just have like 120s, 130, 140, 130, 120, 110, 100, 90, 80, 70, 60.
Yeah. I think
it doesn't work.
Yeah, you've hit on quite a few key points there, I think, with the BPMs. Especially if your curve is doing a BPM match, it kind of means you're gonna, when it's the fast songs, you're gonna tire everyone out really quickly because you've got them dancing to, as you said, like a 120, a 130, a 140, back to a 130. It's like those are actually like fast moving songs, and you're gonna tire everyone out. And the reverse is true as if you do that with all your slow music, because then you're just gonna have everyone get, quite often slow music can be low energy, so it very much becomes everyone kind of can get very lethargic, or
Yeah.
just start to like the mood
And
drops quite a
from
bit.
that, it's hard to get people moving again
Yeah.
into a fast song because they're like, no, I'm done.
Yeah, and I think actually possibly we should talk about the difference between BPM and energy, because they are actually two very different things. And something being high energy doesn't necessarily mean it has a high BPM. Like they're
Yeah.
quite often together, but there are quite a few songs that have like high BPMs that are very low energy. One I think of like is a really good example. I think is Castle by Halsey. It's like a 131 song in terms of BPM, but it's actually quite low in the energy. And you can have songs that are kind of a bit on the slower end and will still have really good energy to them. And so like it's a very important thing to be aware of, especially like when you're building playlists, is that you generally want the energy to do the curve rather than your BPM, I think, for me.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, no, I agree.
you're
Like-
building and then lowering and building back up the energy, and you're going to have a wide range of BPMs that allow you to do that. And because you don't want to be using all your high BPMs like next to each other, you still you want to be able to have like sometimes after having a high energy high BPM song, you can have a high energy low BPM song, so that people can still get a little bit of a break, but you've still got that energy in the room.
Yeah, and that's where the biggest challenge comes in for us, I think, that most people don't realize is like we are thinking about these things for you in like terms of like energy of like the room and how people are reacting to it, while at the same time trying to make it so you get a variety of songs through it and changing the BPM for you. So we're not just doing like we're picking our favorite songs and going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If only it was that easy.
Let's not lie, we've definitely done that like on our birthday playlists, but
On birthday playlists are completely different. Birthday playlists is you play what songs you want and go for it.
but yeah, it's definitely a lot of thought has to go into it, and I think it's
How
more,
long does it take you to do your playlist?
anywhere between half an hour to an hour if I'm going good. I can definitely spend an hour like to 2 hours tinkering if I'm
It's definitely one of those things you can obsess over. Like, I think I've spent like 5 hours on one night before where I just like meticulously like was like, I want to make this one like perfect.
Yeah, it's definitely, and you're trying to find like the right songs for all the spots that you've got, because you've only generally got about 18 songs on a Wednesday night freestyle.
Yeah.
And so you have to be very cutthroat.
Yes. Yeah.
And because you're
And like sometimes you're just like at the end of it, you're just like, I'm not happy with this at all.
Oh yeah, I've definitely had nights where like I've had it ready on like Tuesday night and then come back Wednesday evening and gone, I'm not happy, I'm going to go in.
I'm not happy, I'm changing the whole thing.
Yeah,
like this
things
is out
get
the window.
ripped out.
Let's just do this.
Completely new playlist appears right before class.
Or the worst one is when you're like about halfway to like 3/4 through and you find a song, you're like, how am I going to fit this in? I love this song.
That can
and
be
then you
quite
like
interesting
reshuffle
sometimes.
like 5 songs.
Yeah, because it's definitely something I do when building playlists. Is I often go through our suite of music and I pull out all the songs that I think are good.
Yeah.
And that like I'll generally try and get like a couple new ones, because I generally try and make sure there's like 2 to 3 new ones in a night, and generally a couple of carryovers from the last week, just to make sure that there's a bit of repetitiveness.
Do you purposely try and play a carryover?
Yeah, just
okay.
to make sure that there's still a bit of like especially if it's a newer song, to make sure that people still have that more of a chance to hear it and dance to it. But I'm very aware of, because the playlist device we use kind of gives us tracking on when songs were played, how much they've been played, and so I do keep an eye on that in terms of, this song has been played, I know it's been played for the last 3 weeks, I'm probably not then going to play it, but if I know it was played last week and that's the first time it's played, I'm probably going to let it in, especially if it's a good one.
At least it's something awesome like Gangnam Style, right? Like,
yeah.
Gangnam Style. Yeah.
No, that's
I
if I know
generally
Deb's coming along.
don't play carryover songs.
Okay.
Like, unless there's a song where I'm like, oh, James played it last week, but I really want to play it. So I'll like be like, yes, this one. So like generally I'll try, but just because like generally the numbers of song we have is what 18 to 20.
Yeah.
I think for an hour quarter. Might be wrong. So 18 to 20 depending on like the length of song and things. That's another thing that comes into it that you guys don't realize is like length of song really matters to how many songs you can have in a night. So if you have a playlist with songs that are like purely like 3 minutes or just around 3 minutes, you get an extra like 3 or 4 songs in, where if you don't filter by like song length, you can end up with like 4 or 5 less. So we could have a night with like 16 songs if we had like all the 4 and 5 minute ones in there.
Yeah, I generally put a limit of like 4.5 minutes is how long for a song.
Yeah,
if anything over
unless
that,
there's been a request for a much longer one.
I'll generally avoid the too long songs because it's kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
Hazel has asked us how important is it to play new music, playing new release music at OMJ. I think it's fairly important. I find it depends a bit on how much it's on the radio. Because if I know it's on the radio a lot, I probably want to get it out early and then let it taper off the longer and play it less the longer it's been out because people get sick of it. How do you deal with?
See, I've had the situation where I've gone over a song before I've even played it at OMJ, but I'm like, I should play it because we could get it at a comp, or people will like dancing to it, or people won't have heard it as much as me. So like, I kind of just obey the whole like, if it was played last week, I'll just give it a gap, or if it's like brand new and it's like top of the charts, then I'll play it 2 in a row, or it's kind of a case by case basis. But I like to have new music every time. It's a process of like, is that new music good to dance to, or is it like, if it's new music for the sake of new music, it's not good. But if it's a new good song, then it's worth playing it. If that makes sense. Hopefully it doesn't sound like rambling, but I hope everyone gets what I mean.
Yeah, there's that fine line you have to tread of bringing new music that's going to be the new banger versus overloading people with too much new music that they don't know any of the songs in the night. And so, like, especially the advanced dancers can't really enjoy themselves because they're like, I don't know what this song is, I've never heard it. Or people are just like, I've never heard the song, I don't like it.
And that was something at the start of quarantine. I was wondering what was going to happen after when we could finally dance again. I was like, because it'll be a few months since we've last danced and we can dance, are we going to change the rule or do we not? So we'll see how it goes with that one.
Yeah.
Because that could be an interesting challenge. Because people have still made albums that haven't been released yet. So if by the time we can go to, like, say, stage 1 is, like, I don't know, August, right? Then that's, like, what, 4 or 5 months worth? Off the top of my head, I don't know when we went into quarantine now.
Yeah, and generally
so it could be, like,
in that time frame, we'd probably only have 4 or 5 songs that were coming back that were played 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
I know we do definitely try and like track out some oldies and stuff to make sure that they're featured in the playlist as well. There's some definite classic ones that kind of make
and different genres too.
Yeah, that's
so
the
like
big
one of the discussions we had relatively recently for people on stream. I know you know this, James, but I feel like I should explain it.
Yeah,
is what stations our demographics listen to. So like we looked at. Matt and Deb had like all the data of like what stations we'll listen to most across New Zealand, and like the rock is like really high in our demographic of like 18 to 35, 36 if you're cool, and and the rock was the top one. So we're like, well, why don't we play more rock music? And it was like, okay, let's give it a go. So we've been introducing, I don't know if anyone's noticed this, but like playing at least one rock song a night, or I try to play one rock song a night. And I generally find that most rock songs are the example we gave before, where it's great to listen to, but not great to dance to.
Yeah.
So they're a bit of a gem when you find a rock song that you can dance to. So, but everyone loves them when you do. So it ends up being this, like, if you can find good rock songs that are danceable, it works out. And Brad's been mentioning it's going to give me his playlist of awesome rock songs that you can dance to for ages, but never does.
I'll have to bug him a bit more.
Yeah. It's all Bradley's fault, everyone. Blame him.
Hazel's asking, what kind of music do we practice to for comps? Well, how about you?
Sorry, say that again?
When practicing for a competition, what music do you practice or like to use?
I mean, I'm practicing with Hazel, so like she should know. Maybe that one's directed at you, but like for me, it's generally like, it's generally Hazel's playlist, to be honest. Or when I get to choose, like if there's a particular song that I'm like, this one I want to listen to this, I'll put it on near the end of our practice. But it's generally Hazel's playlist, which is mainly mainstream with some old bangers.
Yeah, I'm generally like top 40 stuff. Because I do a lot of the music for the Sunday comp practices. I have
use those.
Yeah, I have those practice playlists, which just feature a large range of songs. So I generally just let that play on shuffle for practice because it's a bit more representative of how like a dance comp can go. You don't exactly know what you're going to get until you get there, unless you really know the DJ and what their taste is.
Well, yeah, that kind of helps too. Like if it's an Auckland comp where you know it's Van Row stuff, you start listening to more like pop versions of things. If it's Wellington, you start listening to more slow stuff, like especially covers by like Boyce Avenue. Very good to practice to those ones because chances are you'll get it at Wellington. If you get Shay, that can be a bit tipsy-topsy. He seems to be real hit or miss with either bangers or like really off-the-wall random ones that no one can prepare for anyway, so I guess practice for mainstream.
Yeah, I think it's like, on the other side, I think like the DJ should be something that gets mentioned in like competitions. It's like which DJ you're going to be getting, because it can be quite a draw card as well, because like certain DJs you're going to just get sweet songs for every event. And so
DJ Stu!
I don't know, that guy's a bit odd.
He's alright.
Yeah. He's played one or two okay ones. But yeah, I think DJs can definitely make events, and so they should like be advertised a bit.
Yes. I agree. Like I think the easiest one for us to use as an example is like Ian Lee.
Yes.
For both of us. For anyone that doesn't know DJ Ian Lee, he has now retired from DJing, but was the DJ at Shakedown Swing and like a couple of other events, including MJ and West Coast in Oz, mainly, but a couple in New Zealand. Very fun, funky guy who plays some real bangers and like just out of absolute nowhere bangers as well. My favourite memory of him is the fact that he... what's that I'm Never Gonna Give You Up song called again? Rickrolled. He rickrolled Darren in his Jack and Jill prelim, and only Darren realised.
That does sound like Ian. Just thinking about competitions, we have had a couple questions about how Christchurch does music for competitions. So one of the questions was about how do we save the song for finals. Truth is, we don't save songs for finals because for me, I plan all the music out well in advance, or at the very least it's all ready by the Friday night, meaning I pick the final songs first. Finals are the most important, so they get top rating. Basically, level 4 freestyle is the highest priority. It gets first pick for what songs it wants, and then you work your way down, and then it goes to all the heats and stuff basically from there. So it's not so much songs get saved, it's more that they are pre-picked. For me, I have, by the time a competition starts, I have all the songs picked and ready to go. So that way I'm not stressing about what song's going to play, I'm only stressing about making sure they play in the right order.
Unless you accidentally get surprised with like 2 songs at level 3.
Yeah, like level 3, you get told it's going to be a 1-song final, and then after the first song's played, they go, "Oh, where's our second song?" And you're going, "Excuse me, what second song?"
What second song? Give me 2 seconds.
Yep, pretty much. Zoe, quickly make small talk while I find a song for these guys.
Stall, Zoe.
Which is why that one was a bit more hastily picked than all the others. Generally speaking, in terms of also for like heats and stuff, I try to make sure that all the songs are consistent. So within a heat, pretty much all the songs should sound roughly the same. They'll all be roughly within the same, like 2 to 3, 5 at most BPM range. All have roughly the same energy. The exceptions are when you have heats that are like 6 to 8 heats, because finding that many songs that are the same is just no.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Unless it's like beginner music. And you're allowed to, like, what's the age range that you're allowed to use for your comp songs?
Any I want.
Any you want? Okay.
Yeah, I generally try and make sure it's recent stuff, especially when we get to finals. I hold the approach especially for level 4, is I want to challenge you, but not trick you. So at no point, especially in the finals, do I want to screw you over. But I will play songs that are potentially a bit harder to make, especially at level 4, make you prove your ability. Because you're level 4, like, at that point, I kind of need to help the judges out to, like, make you guys show which one is the better couple. Because there's sometimes very little difference between the couples. It's like, you're all so high caliber that it's the little things that'll count.
Yeah, and I guess where the difference in opinion is going to come from that, because I fully agree with you. I think that to be level 4, especially if you're spotlighting, you need to be challenged to then put on a show.
Yeah, but you don't want to be screwed over. You don't want to play the wacky song no one's ever heard. You try to avoid that as much as possible.
Or say an Australian local song when you're giving a New Zealand couple a spotlight song. So that would be really weird, right?
Never happened to you, right? That would just be kind of a weird
thing to do. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of that thing of, especially in a spotlight, because everyone's getting a different song, you really want to avoid the screwing one couple over in particular. Like, you've got a little bit more leeway when it's the fast and slows, because everyone has to deal with it. So there's a little bit more leeway in that respect, that you can give them a bit of a weirder song, but never in spotlights. So
I wanted to pick your brains on this, and I thought that I'd wait for this opportunity, because then everyone gets to hear your response for this.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, because the other, how am I going to phrase this? Who cares? Okay. So like the Ciroc version of it is effectively you're on a spotlight, you're there to perform, you're there to put on a show, right?
Yeah.
So generally what they do with their music is they make it like mainstream, easier ones that people can kind of pop off on, or like try and do all their fancy stuff easy to.
Yeah.
Right? So in terms of putting on a show, do you then make your fast and slow like the more challenging ones because everyone gets the even scale, and then give the spotlights like here's these easier or more well-known songs, or do you still go for like the same like plane across of challenge to like performing? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I was trying to phrase that well.
Yeah, so you're right in the sense that spotlights are like, they are performance. They are the moment you want your top level dancers to inspire everyone else. So you want to make it, you want to give them the opportunity to perform and put on a show the best that they can. Which is often why you do like the this and that's quite often the one is like fast and slow, because you let them then pick what they're best at, to show off themselves at their best. Fast and slows, generally you do try, and that's kind of where you can be a bit meaner, in the sense that you will play slightly harder songs. I still try and like stick to well-known stuff. I don't want to like in a final throw something out that either came out last week, or there's like next to no chance anyone's heard it, or it's a weird remix. Because then again, you're going to have a whole bunch of like your advanced dancers, everyone watching them, and you're going to watch them all fumble. and it's not really what you want to have
But
your
also, they
advanced
shouldn't
dances
be
look
level
like.
4 in the final and stumbling over
Yeah.
songs. You'd hope.
You'd hope, but it is very possible for me to pick a song that's going to screw you all over no matter what.
Yes, this is true.
So I'm definitely trying to avoid doing that to you.
Give me swung rhythm and then watch me fail.
Um,
Or watch me not dance. Or watch me try and dance MJ to, like,
something
when
yeah,
I'm blatantly trying to dance West Coast.
yeah, but like I stand by like one thing I think people have recognized for me is fast is fast,
Yes.
and by fast I mean high BPM fast.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's the way to prep for you, is like, whatever the rules state is what you're going to get.
yeah, oh yeah, I stick quite close to the top line when it comes to fast of what I'm allowed to play.
And the slow, you'll stick close to the bottom.
Yeah, in saying that, like, after you get above like 170, it is just not really possible to dance well. Like, it's, unless you've seriously trained at that, modern jive at above 170 is very hard. So I'm not gonna like pick that range, but like 158, more than welcome. And then slow, I'm probably not gonna take you down to like 70 B or 60 BPM, just because that kind of, you still want energy in the room.
Nah.
And you can still like a 90
just go as
BPM
slow as
song
you
is
can.
still slow enough for people to like really show off their skill in that area.
But it depends how much Brad bribes you, right? Like,
I think it's like Gravity's a 69, so I think it's 70, so it's still good.
so he'll be happy. So we've got a few
Yeah, so
statements, and I
so-
want to address Shannon's one,
Yeah,
their
yeah.
comment that, but aren't spotlights still a competition? Yes, they are. It's just a difference in philosophy and how they're using their spotlights. So, like the Ciroc system, where they're making it like, we want you to put on a show, they're blatantly trying to make it easy for you to use all your big moves, because they want all these big moves or these big sequences where like people are impressed by and go, wow, that's incredible dancing. That's a way to be inspired. Where what James's method, or the other side of the conversation, is yes, you should be able to do those big moves to anything. And that's the real mark of a skilled dancer. So it's a difference in like, this is one way to do it, or this is the other way to do it. In fact, I shouldn't have said it was like Ciroc's way of, I want to do these big moves, because they were actually heading away from that.
it's
But
very DJ dependent, I think.
yeah, and that seems to be the main divide in philosophy between which way people go with it. I hope that makes sense, and you might be able to clarify anything I didn't make clear there, James.
Yeah, the only thing I think I'd add is that it is still a competition. It's just that the DJs we have when we're doing a competition, we have a different viewpoint from the competitors about it. Because whilst we want to pick songs that are going to, on one side, help the judges make decisions, but on the other side, we don't want to screw the competitors over. Like, for beginners, I'm not going to play songs that don't have clear BPMs. Like, if you're level 1 and I played a song that doesn't have a clear BPM, I view that as quite mean to the level 1s, because that basically means I've got a bunch of dancers that are really nervous on the floor, and I don't want to add in a thing that's going to make their life a lot harder. Because, I'll be honest, a lot of level 1s,
Struggle with the very
timing is
basics.
not the best thing. So,
Even level 2.
yeah.
Like,
I
honestly,
could-
level 1, level 2 is kind of their bracket in terms of, like, in music, that you're aiming at them is probably like, you've got to give them a clear beat. It's probably like right up there.
yeah. Now,
Correct me if I'm wrong.
no, I agree with you. The only thing I'm going to add to that is that doesn't mean I'm going to play a boring, crappy song. Because I still want them to have the opportunity to show their musicality off.
And have fun, of course.
Because if they're capable of doing that, I want to give them the opportunity to do that. I'm aware of what the skill levels are.
Yeah, and
And that
I
plays
think
into a lot of the categories.
I think it's also from a DJ's point of view. You're trying to give the dancers something that they can use their tools that they have created or developed over a period of time to perform, to make the judges be able to separate them from like 1 to whatever it is.
Yeah, very true.
In terms of, this is where my line in the sand is, these people are above it, these people are below it. It's not we're just playing whatever music that suits this criteria between these BPMs. You're trying to put a song to a particular level that's going to either enhance the good attributes or show like where they could improve.
Yeah, and I kind of take that into like level 4 is the easiest one to do this in because they have the highest skill cap. Is that often each round is trying to highlight a certain skill. So like one round will often be hip hop music. How well can you dance that? One round will be pop. One round will be like acoustic stuff. So it's kind of, and each round is different. So that way you're getting the dance that has the capability to dance the best to all the music, rather than just someone who's really good at one song or one song type.
Or one genre, yeah.
Yeah.
So that, like, especially I think it was about 3-4 years ago now. It could be 2-3. I could have my timeline mixed up. But there was a period where there was like a bunch of dancers going through who I called the Vanguard, who they all went through at about the same time, and people would go ahead of the others, and it would effectively come down to what type of music was being played, because 2 of them were particularly good at like R&B, 2 of them were very good at like classic. So you had these like differing styles where depending on the competition or what music was played, they all jumped above each other.
Yeah.
Now it's a lot more jumbled, and so if you were good at say just one particular style, like let's say slow music, not looking at anyone in particular, Bradley, you would only do well at comps where say you would only get slow music, so you would need to like expand your skills set to be able to dance to fast music too.
Yeah, very true. Brad can dance fast, he just chooses
He
not
can,
to.
he just hates it.
It's like Alan. Alan can smile, he just saves it for comp day.
Or just when the camera's about to like go off and he'll be like
Yeah.
Damn, you're onto my strats. You're all my pro strats.
you and your
I hear
filthy
ya.
tactics.
Yeah.
Alright.
I think we've answered all the questions. Unless anyone wants to get in with any last minute ones. Anything else you want to wrap up with?
DJ should be appreciated more. We actually do a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yeah. It's one of
so
those
thank you,
things, if
DJs.
you've done the job right, no one notices, but everyone knows when you F up.
Yeah, no, I think that's the very first thing you said to me when I was becoming a DJ.
Yeah, it's just like,
the
people
classic
won't know
Futurama
when you've done a
line.
good job.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you've done things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all.
Yeah.
But no, I'm good unless there's any belated questions. I think the stream is like a couple minute delay, so maybe we give them 2-3 minutes.
Yeah, we'll just side chat.
It's actually not that bad. I've been watching and it's only a few seconds.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I
cool.
think we're doing pretty good. So thanks for joining me, Thomas, to talk music, and
no worries. Always
hopefully
fun.
people found that interesting about the minds of DJs and what goes on behind the scenes. So we'll get everyone back in. If Courtney and Alan want to chuck their cameras on.
Hi.
Awaken, my love.
I'm already awake, Helen.
I was referencing the Childish Gambino album title, but that's cool. Hey, alright.
Each to their own.
Yeah,
Is everyone summoned?
I think so. I'm just going to
We're all back now.
adjust my image. Cool. So thank you guys for coming on and talking your craft. I'm going to hand over to Alan to talk to you about what's happening next week and switch over to our exit slide. So over to you, Alan.
So, just a real quick primer for those of you who haven't heard of it before. Hey, I can see. Okay. Do I have to repeat myself? Okay, I'll keep it as brief as I can. So, for those who've played Spyfall before, we're basically going to be doing that, except instead of locations, so we're going to be doing beginner dance moves. There will be teams for each of the OMJ teachers. We'll each have a team, and we'll play in groups of 5 at a time. If you've not played Spyfall before, the rules are pretty simple. All of you are at a quote-unquote location, / in this case, you'll be all dancing a beginner move. One person in the group is the spy and does not know what the move is. And you have a limited amount of time to ask questions. No one knows who the spy is. And you have to ask questions to determine who the spy is. And then if the spy is accused, they have one chance to guess correctly the move. And if they do, then they get points for that round. We've got a thing going on.
Easy, just ask Blake.
Just ask Blake. Yeah, so there'll be a list of questions that you could possibly be. It'll be great. If you're interested in joining us for a bit of bants and laughs next week, we'll make a Facebook event that you can click attending on, so we know that you're interested, and flick if you want to flick one of the teachers a message and say, hey, heads up, interested, then yeah, we'll split our teams and go from there. If you're not playing with us in the call, then feel free to just hang out in the chat, feed questions, make accusations, have a laugh with us. That's all good. And yeah, so
Alice and Nathan be providing cocktails.
Alice and Nathan can be providing appropriate shaken not stirred cocktails.
Fantastic.
Providing, are they going to drop them off?
We can visit friends as long as there's not more than 10.
It's in the mail, Courtenay.
Dibs.
It's in the mail now.
I don't even know if they're on this, but Alice, Nathan, hi, I'll be at your place next week.
Hey, all right.
Cool. All right.
Shall you join us next week?
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you all next week.
Food.
Bye.